Welcome to Wellness Savvy. In this video, I'm going to review the fundamental concepts you'll need to understand for the basis of our programming, and that's functional range conditioning and Kinstretch. The strength of this programming and what makes it different from all other types of training and rehab is that it focuses on regaining lost motion at the capsule, the deepest layer first, and moving from the inside out. Regaining that lost motion and then neurological control over that motion, you really can accelerate your progress in providing available movement for your other types of exercise training. So I want to begin by having you think about the joint capsules at every joint in your body, your hip joint, your shoulder joint, even all the little joints of your spine. The capsule is a connective tissue that has a lot of nerve endings, and it surrounds each of the joints of your body. So when you were a little kid, you had all available flexibility and pliability to that tissue, and you were learning to develop neurological control over that tissue. Over time, we develop patterns in the way that we move and function in our sports. We lose particular parts of that motion because we're not using it. So this training is focused on finding those areas that are sticky or stuck. And we really deliberately try to open up and regain pliability to that tissue as well as neurological control. So the only time that you'll be resting during this training is really during our 2-minute passive stretches. Otherwise, this training is extremely active and deliberate. And although you won't be moving very much through great ranges of motion, you will be putting a lot of effort in. Because remember, you're doing this training in order to regain motion you've lost in a very deep level and gain control over that. So it has to be very deliberate. That brings me to irradiation. Irradiation is isometric contraction that you're going to use through the rest of your body in order to set a foundation of which you can work off of. If I don't set a foundation, when I go to move my arm, say my shoulder joint, my upper body is going to go along with that motion. And so you are limited in trying to find new available motion because of those compensations and facilitated movement. So if I set a little bit of a foundation, so I tighten up the rest of my body a little bit, or 20%, 30% as we do in our warm-up, then we're able to really try to maximize that with that conscious blocking, really trying to reach as far as we can with that movement, do the best we can without compensating. Now, when we move into our training and we're really trying to actually cause adaptation in the tissue that's restricted, then we want to use more of a level 2. We're going to actually use tools to assist us in blocking our movement. So the more we can lock down or control our foundation, then the more we're able to target the tight, restricted tissue that we haven't had access to. So the more you can set your foundation, that means the more you're able to create deliberate adaptation in the tissue of the joint that you're working to change. You should not experience any pain during training when it's a pinching type of pain. So with the shoulder, as you're raising overhead, it's usually going to be the closing space. So if raising overhead caused pinching here, you would not want to continue moving through that pain. Even if I'm moving through the motion in the video, you're just going to pause and just reverse the motion and working to circumvent that pinch point so that hopefully over time, as you improve your training, you're able to continue moving through that space. Once in a while, there's just too much arthritis that's developed in the joint and that may never occur, which is okay. So you're just never going to force yourself through that pinching pain. We don't want to irritate any joints specifically. You want to come out of the training just feeling good. But what I will encourage you to work through is any cramping or shaking. Now, cramping within our training is a sign that you have not been using that movement, and your brain, your nervous system kind of freaks out a little bit and says, we don't do that. So in the training, as long as you don't have any pinching pain, you want to remind your body that you are safe, and this is something that you need to learn to do again. Better to actually contract the cramping more if you can tolerate, and try to keep working through it if you can. Sometimes it's a little bit too intense, especially early on in your training. Just do the best you can. It's a lot easier to get rid of the cramp if you keep working through it than if you try to get out of position and stretch it out. And you also want to make sure that if you're going to be getting out of the position, you do it safely so you don't strain anything and you don't get hurt. Now, shaking is going to occur during our training. Particularly, it'll happen at about the third rep or more, depending on what we're doing, when you've kind of maxed out fiber recruitment, so your strength capacity up to that point for that isolated movement. And that's when you're going to see the fatigue and they'll be shaking, and you want to try to keep going and really try to maximize that motion as much as possible, because it's just going to accelerate your progress. And the last thing I want to make sure we talk about is the foundation that you set. So your base foundation at which you're going to be doing that irradiation from, you want to modify that base position in any way that you need to, so that when during the training you're not having to move or change your position. So it doesn't matter if you need to modify, it's just that the base position that you do set, you want to be able to maintain it throughout the training that we're going to be doing. Don't try to force yourself into a base position that once you get into training, you're not able to maintain it, because then that's going to only minimize the adaptations that you're able to make, in which we're intending to make during the training in the joint. So that about covers it. Just keep in mind that this always feels really awkward in the beginning as you get used to these new concepts in training. But the more you practice, the better you'll get. And I'm here if you have any questions at all, or you run into any trouble, just let me know. We have a great community full of resources, and I'm here to help you get wellness savvy.